The woman at the gas station told me not to stop for hitchhikers on Route 421. 3 hours later, I picked one up anyway. She's been sitting in my passenger seat for 2 days now, and she won't get out. Stay close. Keep your senses open. And if you're not already subscribed, do it now. Things tend to get lost out here in these mountains, and I'd hate for you to be one of them. I was driving through eastern Kentucky, heading back from a job interview in Pike. It was late, past 10 p.m., and the mountain roads were empty. I'd stopped for gas in a tiny town called Vergy, population maybe 300. The attendant was an older woman, maybe 70, with eyes that had seen too much. She watched me pump gas, then came outside. "You headed west on 421, she asked. I nodded. She shook her head slowly. "Don't stop for nobody. Don't pick up nobody, especially not tonight." I asked why. She just looked at me. "It's the anniversary. Bad things happen on the anniversary." I thanked her and drove off, thinking she was just a superstitious local, but her words stuck with me as I wound through those dark mountains. The road was narrow, barely 2 lanes, hugging the mountainside. On one side, sheer rock face. On the other, a drop into darkness. I'd been driving for maybe 40 minutes when I saw her, standing on the shoulder, thumb out, wearing a white dress that seemed to glow in my headlights. I should have remembered the warning, should have kept driving, but she looked so desperate, so lost. I stopped. She walked to the passenger window and I rolled it down. "Where are you headed?" I asked. She smiled. "Wherever you're going." Her voice was soft, almost musical. Something about it felt off, but I unlocked the door. She got in. The temperature in the car dropped immediately. I could see my breath. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead. I asked her name. No response. I asked where she was coming from. Nothing. Just that slight smile on her face. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. I kept glancing at her. She never blinked, never moved, just stared at the road ahead with that frozen smile. I started to feel uneasy, really uneasy. I told her I was going to drop her at the next town. She turned to look at me then. Her eyes were completely black, no whites, no iris, just solid black, and when she spoke, her voice had changed, deeper, colder. "You can't get rid of me that easy." I slammed on the brakes. We skidded to a stop. I told her to get out. She didn't move. I reached across to open her door. My hand passed right through her arm. Like she was made of smoke. I screamed and pulled my hand back. She laughed. A sound like wind through dead trees. I tried my door. It wouldn't open. None of the doors would open. The windows wouldn't roll down. I was trapped in the car with her. I started driving again, faster now, desperate to reach somewhere with people, somewhere with lights. She sat there the whole time, sometimes staring ahead, sometimes watching me, never blinking, never breathing. I could see through her now. She was translucent, fading in and out like a bad signal, but she wouldn't disappear completely. I reached the next town, a place called Preston. I pulled into a 24-hour diner, practically ran inside, told the waitress there was something in my car. She looked out the window. "Your car's empty, hun." But it wasn't. I could see her sitting there, the woman in white, still smiling. The waitress called the police. When they arrived, they checked my car, found nothing, told me I was probably tired, seeing things, suggested I get some rest. But I knew what I'd seen, what I was still seeing. She was in that passenger seat, as real to me as my own hands. I've tried everything. I drove the car to a priest. He blessed it. She's still there. I took it to a mechanic. He found nothing wrong. She's still there. I even tried to sell the car. 3 potential buyers sat in it, looked right through her, and said it was a great vehicle. None of them could see her, but I can. That was 2 months ago. She's always there now, in the passenger seat, sometimes solid, sometimes transparent, always watching, always smiling. I've stopped driving the car, can't bear to be in there with her anymore, but I can see her through the windows, sitting, waiting. I did some research. 40 years ago, on the same night I picked her up, a young woman was murdered on Route 421, strangled and left on the roadside. Her killer was never found, and every year on the anniversary, people report seeing her, hitchhiking, looking for a ride. Most people drive past, smart people, but every few years, someone stops, someone picks her up, and once she's in your car, she doesn't leave. She stays with you, a permanent passenger, a reminder that some debts are never paid. I called the old woman at the gas station, asked her about the anniversary. She sighed. "You picked her up, didn't you?" I admitted I had. She was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. I tried to warn you. She'll stay until you find him, until you find her killer. That's what she wants. Justice, revenge. But how am I supposed to find a killer from 40 years ago? The case is cold. The evidence is gone. Most of the original investigators are dead. I'm not a detective. I'm just a guy who made one stupid mistake. One moment of kindness on a dark mountain road. She's still there. I can see her from my window, sitting in my car, waiting. Some nights I think I should just give up. Sell the car for scrap. Walk away. But I know it won't matter. She's not attached to the car. She's attached to me, and she's not going anywhere until I do what she wants. The mountains remember. The roads remember. And the dead never forget. Route 421 runs through the heart of Appalachia, and it's seen more death than anyone wants to admit. Every hitchhiker has a story, but some stories don't end when you drop them off. Some stories follow you home. Some stories sit in your passenger seat forever, smiling, waiting, watching. I'm telling you this as a warning. If you're driving through eastern Kentucky and you see someone on the side of Route 421, don't stop. Don't slow down. Don't make eye contact. Just keep driving, because once you let them in, they never leave, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you're seeing ghosts, or if the ghosts are all that's left to see. My grandfather worked in the coal mines of West Virginia for 40 years. He told me that on level 7, you can still hear the men who never made it out. Last week, I went down there. He was right, and they're still screaming. The Appalachian coal mines are graveyards wearing mountains as headstones. Thousands of men died in those dark tunnels, buried under rock and coal and forgotten time. My grandfather was one of the lucky ones. He survived, but he never stopped hearing them. The mine he worked in was called Black Diamond. It operated from 1920 to 1987. In those 67 years, it claimed 237 lives. The official record lists 237 casualties. But my grandfather always said the real number was higher, much higher. Some men just disappeared, went down into the earth, and never came back up. Their families got no body, no closure, just an empty chair at the dinner table and a paycheck that stopped coming. Level 7 was the deepest part of the mine, 2,000 feet below the surface. It was shut down in 1952 after a partial collapse killed 14 men. The company sealed it off, marked it as condemned, and never spoke of it again. But my grandfather told me stories. He said on quiet nights, when the machinery stopped and the other miners went home, you could hear voices from level 7, men calling for help, men screaming, men crying for their mothers. I thought he was just old, his mind going soft from years of cold dust and darkness, but he was so insistent, so certain, and when he died last month, his final words to me were, "Don't let them be forgotten. Go down there. Bear witness. Tell people what happened." So I went. The mine has been officially closed for 37 years. The entrance is chained off, covered in no trespassing signs. But chains can be cut, and signs can be ignored. I went at night, brought bolt cutters, a headlamp, and a voice recorder. I wanted proof. I wanted to honor my grandfather's dying wish. The main shaft was easier to access than I expected. The chains were rusted, the lock broken. Someone had been here before me, recently, judging by the fresh footprints in the coal dust. That should have been my first warning, but I was determined. I descended. The shaft angled down steeply, supported by rotting timbers that groaned under their own weight. Water dripped from the ceiling. The air was thick and damp and tasted like metal. My headlamp cut a narrow beam through absolute darkness. Every step echoed. Every breath sounded too loud. I passed level 1, level 2, level 3. Each level was marked by faded signs and branching tunnels that disappeared into black. I kept going down past level 4, where my grandfather said he'd once seen a man crushed by falling rock, down past level 5, where a gas explosion had killed 9 men in 1948, down to level 6. The entrance to level 7 should have been sealed. My grandfather said they'd filled it with concrete, made it impassable. But when I got there, the concrete was cracked, broken. Someone had dug through it. Recently, the opening was just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. I hesitated. This was insane. I was alone, 2,000 feet underground, about to enter a condemned section of a mine that had been sealed for 70 years. But I'd come this far, and I'd made a promise to my grandfather. I squeezed through the opening. On the other side, the tunnel was different, older. The timbers were darker, more decayed. The walls were scorched black in places, and it was cold. So cold my breath came out in white clouds. 2,000 feet underground, where the temperature should be constant. It felt like winter. I walked deeper into level 7. My footsteps sounded wrong, muffled, like I was walking on something soft. I looked down. The floor wasn't rock or coal. It was covered in a thick layer of ash, black ash that rose in small clouds with each step I took. Then I heard it, faint at first, a sound like wind through a tunnel, but there was no wind down here, no air movement at all. I stopped walking. The sound continued, and I realized it wasn't wind. It was voices. Dozens of voices, hundreds, maybe, all talking at once, overlapping, echoing through the tunnels. I couldn't make out words, just the sound of men speaking. Some loud, some whispered, some angry, some pleading. The voices came from deeper in the tunnel, from the direction I was heading. I should have turned back, should have run, but I kept walking. I had to know. The tunnel opened into a large chamber. My grandfather had mentioned it, the main dig room of level 7. This was where the 14 men had died in the collapse, where the company had decided the coal wasn't worth the lives. The chamber was massive. My headlamp couldn't reach the far walls, but I could see shapes in the darkness, mounds of rock and coal, piles of debris, and something else, shadows, moving shadows that didn't match my light. The voices were louder here, clear enough now that I could make out some words. "Help us, please. We're trapped. Get us out." Over and over, different voices saying the same things, begging, screaming. Some were crying. The sound echoed off the stone walls, amplified, distorted. I turned on my voice recorder, held it up. The voices seemed to react. They got louder, more desperate. I felt something brush past me. Not a person, not anything physical, but a presence. A cold spot that moved through the air, then another, then dozens of them. The chamber was full of moving cold spots, invisible presences circling me. Pressing close, my headlamp started to flicker. I smacked it. It steadied for a moment, then died completely. I was in absolute darkness, 2,000 feet underground, surrounded by voices, by presences, by things I couldn't see but could feel touching me. I fumbled for my backup flashlight, dropped it, heard it clatter away across the stone floor. Panic set in. I couldn't see. Couldn't orient myself. Didn't know which direction led back to the tunnel. The voices were everywhere now, shouting, screaming. So loud I had to cover my ears. Then I felt hands, actual hands, grabbing my arms, my shoulders, my clothes. Cold hands, dozens of them, pulling me, dragging me deeper into the chamber. I screamed, fought, tried to pull away, but the hands were strong, and there were too many. They pulled me maybe 20 feet, then stopped, released me. I fell to my knees on the stone floor. The voices stopped. Complete silence. I was breathing hard, heart hammering, completely blind in the darkness. I waited for something else to happen, but nothing did. I felt around on the ground, found my flashlight. It still worked. I turned it on, and I saw where they'd brought me. I was kneeling in front of a wall, and carved into that wall were names. Hundreds of names, scratched into the stone with rocks, with fingernails, with anything sharp enough to leave a mark. These were the men who died down here, not just the 14 from the collapse. All of them, every man who'd been lost in level 7 over the decades. Their names were here, their final testimony. Some had dates, some had messages. Help never came. Tell my wife I love her. We're still here. At the bottom, in fresher carvings, were 14 names I recognized. The men from the 1952 collapse. The men my grandfather had worked with. The men whose screams he'd heard for the rest of his life. They were all here, preserved in stone, waiting to be found. I took photos, documented every name I could see. There were far more than 237. The company had lied, had covered up the real death toll, had sealed level 7 to hide their crimes, and the men who died here had been trying to tell their story for 70 years. I made it out, barely crawled back through that tunnel, climbed those 2,000 feet of shaft, emerged into the night air, gasping and shaking. I had my photos, I had my voice recording, I had proof. But when I got home and checked the recorder, it was blank, just static. The photos were corrupted, every single one, unreadable. All I had left was my memory and the scratches on my arms where those cold hands had grabbed me. I tried to tell people, contacted historians, journalists, mining safety organizations. Most ignored me. A few investigated. They confirmed that level 7 exists, that 14 men died there in 1952, but they found no evidence of the wall of names, no evidence of anything else I'd described. The mine entrance has been sealed again, this time with welded steel plates and warning signs about toxic gas. No one can get in now, and maybe that's for the best, because those men are still down there, still trapped, still screaming, and all they want is for someone to remember their names. I wake up every night hearing those voices, feeling those cold hands. My grandfather was right. You never forget the sound of dying men. It stays with you, haunts you, becomes part of you. The mountains took them, the mine buried them, and the company erased them, but they're still there, still waiting, still hoping someone will tell their story. I'm telling it now. The men of level 7 in the Black Diamond mine. They lived, they worked, they died, and they've been screaming in the dark for 70 years. If you ever find yourself near an abandoned mine in Appalachia, listen carefully. You might hear them too, the voices of forgotten men, the ghosts that the mountains refuse to release. The old woman who lived at the end of Cutter's Ridge only came to town once a year. She'd trade herbs and remedies for supplies, then disappear back into the mountains. Last month, she didn't show up. I went looking for her. I found her cabin, and I found what she'd been keeping away from us. Appalachian folk magic is real, not the watered-down version you see in books and movies. The real thing. The kind passed down through generations of mountain women who knew the woods better than they knew their own children. My great-aunt was one of them, a Yarb woman, They called her an herbalist, a healer, and a protector. Her name was Edith Cutter. She lived alone on Cutter's Ridge in a cabin her grandfather had built in 1870. No electricity, no running water, no road access, just a narrow footpath that wound 3 miles up the mountain through dense forest. She was 87 years old and hadn't left that mountain in decades, except for her once yearly trip to town. Every October, like clockwork, Aunt Edith would appear at the farmer's market in our town of Harlan. She'd set up a small table with jars of tinctures, bundles of dried herbs, and small cloth bags filled with God knows what. People came from 3 counties to buy from her. Her remedies worked. Stomach troubles, headaches, insomnia, bad dreams. She had something for everything. But this year, October came and went. No Aunt Edith. People started to worry, started to talk. Someone should check on her, they said. But no one wanted to make that hike. No one wanted to venture up Cutter's Ridge. The place had a reputation. People didn't go there. I felt obligated. She was family, even if I'd only met her a handful of times. So I volunteered, told my wife I'd be back by evening, packed some supplies and started up the trail. It was early November. The leaves had fallen and the forest felt naked, exposed. Every sound carried. The trail was worse than I expected, overgrown in places, washed out in others. It took me 4 hours to make the 3-mile hike. By the time I reached the cabin, it was late afternoon. The sun was already dropping behind the ridge. The cabin looked abandoned. The door was hanging open. Windows were dark. No smoke from the chimney. I called out. No response. I approached slowly. Something felt wrong. The air around the cabin was heavy, oppressive, like walking into a room where a fight had just ended. Inside, the cabin was a disaster. Furniture overturned, jars smashed, herbs scattered across the floor, and symbols painted on every wall, on the ceiling, on the floor. Symbols I didn't recognize, circles and lines in strange angular shapes, all painted in what looked like rust-colored paint or blood. I found Aunt Edith in her bedroom. She was sitting in a rocking chair facing the window. At first I thought she was asleep. Then I got closer. She was dead, had been for weeks, judging by the state of the body. Her eyes were open, her mouth frozen in a scream. Her hands clutched a small cloth bag so tightly I had to pry her fingers open to remove it. Inside, the bag was a collection of objects, bones, feathers, stones, dried flowers, and a piece of paper with writing on it. The ink was faded, but I could make out some words. Keep it bound, keep it buried, keep it hungry. I heard something outside, a sound like branches breaking, heavy footsteps circling the cabin. I went to the window, nothing visible, but the footsteps continued, slow, deliberate. Whatever was out there was big, and it was pacing, like a wolf circling prey. The sun was setting. I needed to leave before dark, but something told me that would be a mistake, that whatever was outside would follow me, that Aunt Edith had died protecting something, containing something, and now that she was gone, it was free. I looked at the symbols on the walls more carefully. They weren't random. They formed a pattern, a boundary, a circle of protection around the cabin, and in several places, the symbols were broken, smeared, like something had tried to erase them. The footsteps stopped. The forest went silent. Then I heard scratching. On the roof. Something was on the roof, moving across it with a sound like nails on wood. Back and forth, patient, waiting. I found Aunt Edith's journal. The most recent entry was dated 3 weeks ago. She wrote about something breaking through the wards. Something she'd kept bound for 60 years, finally getting loose. She'd tried to rebind it, tried to strengthen the protection, but she was old, weak, and it was strong. The journal talked about a creature, something that had lived in these mountains long before settlers arrived. something that fed on fear and pain. The Cherokee had bound it centuries ago, locked it in a cave on Cutter's Ridge. But settlers found the cave, broke the seals, released it. Aunt Edith's grandfather had rebound it, used his knowledge of old magic and Cherokee rituals to trap it again. And every generation since had maintained that binding, protected it, fed it just enough to keep it contained, but not enough to give it strength. Until Aunt Edith, until she got too old, until she missed a feeding, and it broke free. The scratching on the roof grew louder, more insistent. I could hear breathing now, long wet exhales, and a smell like rotting meat and swamp water. It was testing the cabin, looking for weak points in the protection, and it was finding them. The symbols on the walls started to glow, faint at first, then brighter. They were still working, still holding, but barely. I could see cracks forming, dark tendrils seeping through. The boundary was failing. I did the only thing I could think of. I took Aunt Edith's blood, still on her clothes, and started repainting the broken symbols. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't understand the meaning, but I copied them as exactly as I could, retraced every line, closed every gap. The breathing outside became agitated, angry. The scratching turned to pounding. The whole cabin shook, but I kept painting, kept tracing, kept sealing, and slowly, the glowing intensified. The dark tendrils retreated. The pounding weakened. By the time I finished, it was full dark and silent. Whatever had been outside was gone, or waiting. I stayed in that cabin all night, sitting with Aunt Edith's body, holding her journal, reading about 60 years of protection, 60 years of sacrifice, all to keep something terrible from getting loose. When morning came, I hiked down the mountain, went straight to the sheriff, told him Aunt Edith had passed. They sent a team to retrieve the body. I went back with them. The cabin looked normal in daylight. The symbols were barely visible, and there was no sign of what I'd experienced. But I know what I saw, what I heard, what I felt. Aunt Edith wasn't just an herbalist. She was a guardian, and now she's gone. The symbols I repainted won't hold forever. They're already fading, and when they fail completely, that thing will be free. I've tried to learn what she knew, read her journal cover to cover, studied those symbols, but it's not enough. This was knowledge passed down through generations, knowledge I don't have, and without it, I can't maintain the binding, can't keep it contained. So if you're in eastern Kentucky, near a place called Cutter's Ridge, and you hear something moving through the forest at night, stay inside, lock your doors, paint a circle of salt around your house, because Aunt Edith is gone, and the thing she kept bound for 60 years is hungry, and it's looking for new prey. The mountains are full of secrets. Some are beautiful, some are terrible, and some should have stayed buried forever. Aunt Edith knew that. She died protecting us, and soon we'll find out if her sacrifice was enough. My son told me there was a man in the woods behind our house who wanted to play with him. I checked the woods. There was no one there, but the next day, my son described him perfectly, including details he shouldn't have known, details about a man who disappeared from these mountains 30 years ago. We moved to rural Virginia in the spring. Beautiful property, 10 acres backing up to Daniel Boone National Forest, a creek, woods, privacy, perfect for raising kids, we thought. Perfect for my 8-year-old son, Marcus, who loved exploring and building forts and playing in the dirt. The first few months were Marcus made a friend from school. They'd play in the backyard for hours. I'd watch them from the kitchen window. 2 boys running around, laughing, having adventures. Normal kid stuff. Then one day, Marcus's friend couldn't come over. His family had gone out of town, but I still heard Marcus outside, talking to someone, laughing with someone. I looked out the window. He was alone, playing by himself, having a conversation with no one. When he came inside, I asked about it. Oh, I was playing with the man in the woods. He's nice. He knows lots of games. I felt a chill. What man? The one who lives back there. He says he's been here a long time. He's lonely. I went outside immediately. Checked the woods. No one. No signs of anyone. No tracks. No disturbed leaves. Nothing. I asked Marcus to show me where. He led me about 50 yards into the forest, to a small clearing. This is where he likes to play. There was nothing there. I asked Marcus to describe the man. He's old, has a beard, wears funny clothes, like from old times, overalls and a straw hat. And he talks weird, like the way Grandpa talks. I asked what they talked about. Just stuff. He asks about school, about you and Mom, about where we moved from. Red flags everywhere. I told Marcus not to talk to strangers, not to go into the woods alone. He protested, but he's not a stranger. He's my friend. His name is Caleb. I went cold, asked him to repeat the name. Caleb. That's what he said his name is. Caleb Hutchins. I knew that name. There was a historical marker near our property. Caleb Hutchins. Disappeared 1994. Local man, aged 42. Vanished while hunting. Never found. Presumed dead. The search lasted 3 weeks. They covered every inch of these woods. Nothing. I asked Marcus how he knew this man's last name. He told me. He says his whole name. Caleb Hutchins. Says he used to own this land before we bought it. I felt sick. No way Marcus could have known that. We'd never discussed the previous owners. Never mentioned the historical marker. That night, I did research. Found old newspaper articles about Caleb Hutchins. Found his photo. The next morning, I showed Marcus a series of photos. Mixed in was Caleb's picture. Without hesitation, Marcus pointed to it. That's him. That's my friend. I banned Marcus from the woods. Told him the man was dangerous. That he needed to stay in the yard. Marcus cried. Said I was being mean. That Caleb was nice. That Caleb just wanted company. I didn't care. I wasn't letting my son talk to a ghost, or worse. But Marcus kept seeing him. From his bedroom window. From the backyard. He'd wave. Tell me Caleb was out there, watching. I never saw anything. My wife never saw anything. But Marcus insisted. He's there. He wants me to come play. He says he has something to show me. I contacted a local historian. Told her about the situation. She knew the Hutchins case. Very strange, she said. He went out hunting one morning. His truck was found at the trailhead. His gun was propped against a tree about a mile in. But no Caleb. No blood. No signs of struggle. Like he just vanished. There were theories, she continued. Some thought he'd run off, left his family. Others thought he'd had an accident and the body was never found. But the weirdest theory was that he'd gone into a cave system. There are unexplored caves all through these mountains. Deep, dangerous, easy to get lost, and never found. I asked if there were caves on my property. She pulled up a geological survey map. Several, marked as hazardous. Sealed off years ago after another disappearance. A boy in the 60s. Went exploring and never came out. They sealed every cave entrance they could find. That night, Marcus had a nightmare. Woke up screaming. When I got to his room, he was sitting up in bed, staring at the window. He's out there. He's calling me. He wants me to follow him. He says there's something I need to see. Something important. I looked out the window. Nothing. Just darkness and trees. But Marcus was terrified. Genuinely afraid. This wasn't a game anymore. Whatever he was experiencing was scaring him. I stayed with him until he fell asleep. The next day, I hired a security company. Had cameras installed around the property. Especially focused on the woods. If something was out there, I'd see it. I'd have proof. The cameras ran 24/7, motion activated, high definition. Nothing could approach without being recorded. For 3 days, nothing. Then, on the 4th night, at 2 a.m., every camera triggered simultaneously. I checked the footage, and I saw him, a man, standing at the edge of the woods, wearing overalls and a straw hat, staring at our house. He stood perfectly still for 20 minutes, then turned and walked back into the forest. I called the police, showed them the footage. They agreed it was concerning, trespassing at minimum, but when they checked the woods, they found nothing. No tracks, no signs anyone had been there. The ground was soft from recent rain, should have shown footprints, but there was nothing. I showed them Caleb's photo, showed them the security footage side by side. They went pale. "That's impossible," one officer said. "That man's been dead for 30 years. I told them I knew, told them my son had been seeing him, talking to him. They didn't know what to say. That night, I heard tapping on Marcus's window, went to check, saw him, Caleb, right outside, face pressed against the glass, staring in. I yelled. He didn't react, just stared. I ran outside. By the time I got there, he was gone." Marcus told me the next morning that Caleb had left him a message. "He wants me to find him. He says he's stuck. He can't leave. He needs help." I asked where. "Where is he stuck?" "In the cave. The one under our house. He fell in and couldn't get out. He's been there for 30 years. I checked the property survey. There was no cave marked under our house, but old maps sometimes missed things. I called the geological survey, asked them to check their records, found something interesting. There was a cave system, runs right under where our house now stands. It was discovered in the 90s. Shortly after Caleb disappeared, they sealed one entrance, but there might be others. I hired a ground-penetrating radar team, had them scan under the house. They found it, a large cavity about 30 feet down, and something inside, something that showed up on their scans as a dense mass. Could be rock formation, they said, but it could be something else. I'm digging. I've hired contractors. We're going to excavate, find that cave, find whatever's down there, because I need to know. I need to know if Caleb Hutchins really is trapped under my house, if he's been down there for 30 years, if my son has been talking to a ghost who needs help, or if this is something worse. Marcus says Caleb is happy. I'm digging. Says he's waiting. Says he's been waiting so long, and he promises that when I find him, he'll finally be free. I'm not sure that's a good thing. I'm not sure I want to free whatever is down there, but I can't stop now. I've gone too far. If you're reading this, and you live in the Appalachian Mountains, check your property maps. Check for caves. Check for disappearances, because the mountains are full of people who never came home, and some of them are still down there, still waiting, still calling out to anyone who might hear. And if you do hear them, think carefully before you answer, because once you start looking for them, they won't let you stop, not until you set them free, and who knows what happens then. The logging company found the town by accident. It wasn't on any map. It had no roads leading in or out. Just 300 people living like it was still 1875. They spoke in English, dialect that hadn't been used in 100 years. And when we asked where they came from, they said they'd always been there, in the place where the sun doesn't reach, where the mountain keeps them safe, where the old gods still walk. I work for a forestry survey company. We map timber resources, plan sustainable logging operations. It's boring work usually, walking grids, tagging trees, recording data. But last summer, we were assigned a section of the Chattahoochee National Forest that hadn't been surveyed since the 1940s. The terrain was brutal, steep ridges, dense undergrowth, no trails. We were 3 days into the survey, miles from the nearest road, when we saw the smoke. Not wildfire smoke, chimney smoke. Multiple chimneys. Someone was living out here. We followed the smoke, pushed through thick laurel and mountain laurel until we emerged at the edge of a valley we shouldn't have been able to find. The geological maps showed this area as continuous ridge. No valley, no flatland, but there it was. A hidden valley maybe 2 miles long and half a mile wide, and it was full of buildings, not modern buildings. Log cabins, rough-hewn and hand-built, maybe 50 of them scattered across the valley floor, smoke rising from stone chimneys, fenced gardens, livestock, people moving between buildings, a community, an entire hidden community. We descended into the valley. As we got closer, people noticed us, stopped what they were doing, watched us approach. They didn't seem frightened, just curious. And when we reached the first house, an older man came out to meet us. He spoke English, but it was strange. The accent was thick, the word choices archaic, like listening to someone from a Shakespeare play. He asked our business. We explained we were surveyors, working for the government. He frowned at the word government. We don't recognize no government, he said. We're our own people. Been here since before there was a government, before there was a country. We asked how long. He shrugged. Always. We've always been here. More people gathered. Men, women, children, all dressed in homespun clothes. Simple, plain, like something from a history book. None of them wore modern fabrics. No synthetic materials. Everything was wool, cotton, leather, handmade. We asked the town's name. The old man looked confused. It don't have a name. It's just the hollow. We asked what county we were in. He didn't know what a county was. We asked what year it was. He said 1875. We laughed, then realized he wasn't joking. They didn't know about cars, electricity, phones, the internet, none of it. They lived like their ancestors had in the 1800s, completely isolated, completely cut off. When we told them it was 2023, they didn't believe us, thought we were lying or crazy. We stayed the night. They were hospitable, fed us, gave us places to sleep, and we talked, tried to understand. They told us their history. Their ancestors had come to these mountains in the 1700s, fleeing persecution, looking for isolation. They'd found this valley and settled it, built their homes, raised their families. But something was wrong with the way they talked about time. They'd reference events from centuries ago like they'd happened recently, talked about ancestors like they were still alive. When we pressed for details, they got vague, uncomfortable, changed the subject. The next day, we wanted to leave, wanted to report this discovery, but they asked us to stay. Just one more day, the old man said. There's something you need to see, something you need to understand before you go. That night, they took us to the center of the valley, to a spot where the ground was scorched black in a perfect circle. No plants grew there, no grass, just bare earth. And in the center was a stone, a massive standing stone covered in carvings, symbols we didn't recognize. This is why we're here, the old man said. This is what keeps us safe, what keeps the valley hidden, what keeps us young. We asked what he meant. He smiled, a sad smile. We don't age here, not like you do. Time moves different, always has. We laughed again, but looking around, we realized something disturbing. Everyone in the town looked roughly the same age, late 20s to early 40s. No elderly, no young children. When we asked about it, they pointed to the stone. The old ones sleep. The young ones aren't born yet, not until the time is right. They showed us a building at the edge of town, told us not to go inside, but we could look through the windows. We did, and we saw them bodies, dozens of bodies laid out on wooden tables. Old people, ancient people, their skin wrinkled and gray, but they weren't dead. We could see them breathing, slow, shallow, like hibernating animals. And in another building, we saw babies, dozens of babies, perfectly preserved, not growing, not aging, just waiting. Waiting for what? We asked. The old man pointed to the stone again. When it's time, when the cycle turns, they'll wake, and we'll sleep. That's how it's always been. We wanted to leave immediately. This was insane, impossible. But when we tried to find the path we'd use to enter the valley, it was gone. The undergrowth was too thick, the terrain too steep. We couldn't remember the way. The old man smiled. You can leave when it's time, when you understand, when you've seen what we protect. That night, we heard sounds from the forest, drums, chanting. We looked out and saw lights moving through the trees. The townspeople were walking into the forest, all of them, moving in procession toward the far end of the valley. We followed. Shouldn't have, but we did. The procession led to a cave, a massive cave entrance carved with more of those strange symbols. The townspeople entered. We hesitated, but curiosity won. We went in. The cave was vast, larger than any natural formation should be, and it was full of them. Things that weren't quite human. Tall, thin, pale, with eyes that reflected our flashlight beams like animals. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, living in the cave. And the townspeople were bringing them food, offerings. These are the old gods, the man whispered to us. He'd appeared beside us without making a sound. We feed them, keep them happy. In return, they keep us hidden, keep us safe, keep us young. It's been this way for centuries. Will be this way for centuries more. We ran, didn't care about the path anymore, just crashed through the forest, climbed the ridge, kept going until we could see the valley below. But when we looked back, it was gone. The valley wasn't there anymore, just continuous ridge, just unbroken forest, like it had never existed. We reported it, showed them our location on GPS, but when they sent teams to investigate, they found nothing. No valley, no town, no stone. Our GPS data showed we'd been standing on a ridgetop, never descended into any valley. Our cameras had malfunctioned. No photos, no video, just our testimony. They think we hallucinated, got lost, suffered exposure, and invented the whole thing. But I know what I saw, and I know I'm not aging right. It's been a year since that trip. I should look older, but I don't. I look exactly the same. My partner looks the same too, like time stopped for us that night in the hidden valley. Sometimes I dream about it. The stone, the cave, those pale things watching us, and in my dreams, I hear drums, chanting, feel the pull to go back, to find that valley again, to understand what we saw. But I'm afraid that if I go back, I'll never leave. I'll become one of them, trapped in a place where time doesn't move, where the old gods still walk, where the cycle turns forever. The Appalachian Mountains are full of hidden places, valleys that don't appear on maps, towns that time forgot, and things that live in the deep places, things older than memory. If you're hiking in those mountains and you see smoke where there shouldn't be any, turn around, walk away, because some discoveries shouldn't be made, some places should stay hidden, and some secrets are protected by forces we can't begin to understand. I'm a search and rescue volunteer in the Great Smoky Mountains. Last month, we got a call about a missing hiker. Found him 3 days later, sitting on a ridge, staring at nothing. When we asked where he'd been, he said he'd been following the trail. The problem? The trail he described doesn't exist, and according to his GPS, he never moved from the spot where we found him. We get a lot of missing hikers in the It's a big park. Nearly 522,000 acres, dense forest, rough terrain, easy to get lost. But most people we find within 24 hours. This case was different. The hiker's name was Michael Brennan, experienced outdoorsman, former Army Ranger, had all the right gear, proper equipment, GPS, emergency beacon. He went out for a day hike on the Appalachian Trail, told his wife he'd be back by dinner, never came home. His wife called it in at 8 p.m. We mobilized immediately, found his car at the trailhead, found the trail register where he'd signed in that morning, but no Michael. We searched all night, covered every trail within 5 miles, nothing. Day 2, we expanded the search, brought in dogs, helicopters, thermal imaging. The dogs picked up his scent on the main trail, but lost it after about 3 miles, like he'd just vanished into thin air. The helicopter saw nothing. Thermal imaging showed no heat signatures. Day 3, I was assigned to check a remote section of ridge, area that had already been searched, but we were being thorough. That's where I found him, sitting on a flat rock, legs crossed, staring out at the valley, not moving, not responding, just sitting. I called it in, approached carefully. "Michael," I said. He didn't react. "Michael, can you hear me?" Nothing. I touched his shoulder. He blinked, looked at me like he was waking from a dream. "Where am I?" he asked. "You're in the Smokies," I told him. "You've been missing for 3 days." He looked confused. 3 days? I just started hiking an hour ago. I showed him my watch, showed him the date. He didn't believe me, insisted he'd only been gone a short time. We got him down the mountain. Medics checked him out. He was fine, not dehydrated, not hungry, not injured. Physically, he was perfect, but mentally, something was wrong. He kept insisting he'd only been hiking for an hour, that he'd followed a trail, that he'd seen amazing things. I asked him to describe the trail. He said it was beautiful, perfectly maintained. Stone steps in the steep sections, handrails, bridges over streams, better than any trail he'd ever hiked. He said there were markers every 100 yards, symbols carved into trees, showing the way. The problem is, that trail doesn't exist. There's no maintained trail in that area. No stone steps, no handrails, no bridges, and we don't mark trees with symbols. I showed him a map, asked him to show me the route he took. He pointed to a section that's all off-trail wilderness, impossible to hike, too steep, too overgrown. We checked his GPS, should have shown his entire route, every place he'd been for the past 3 days, but it showed nothing, like the device had been turned off. Except it hadn't. It was on, fully charged, just not recording any data, like he hadn't moved at all. His wife took him home, happy he was alive, happy he was safe. But Michael wasn't the same. He became obsessed with finding that trail again, spent hours looking at maps, planning routes. He said he needed to go back, needed to finish the hike, needed to see where it led. I advised against it, told him to stay away, but he didn't listen. 2 weeks later, he went back, alone, against my warnings. His wife called me when he didn't come home. We searched again, found him in the same spot, sitting on the same rock, staring at nothing. This time, he was catatonic, wouldn't speak, wouldn't move. We had to carry him out. Hospital kept him for observation, ran every test they could think of. Physically fine, mentally gone, like his mind was somewhere else, somewhere we couldn't reach. He's in a facility now, long-term care. Sometimes he talks, describes the trail, the symbols, the things he saw. He talks about people on the trail, other hikers, all walking the same direction, all silent, all focused. He says he tried to turn back, tried to leave, but the trail wouldn't let him. He says the trail has rules. You start walking, you keep walking. You don't stop until you reach the end. And if you try to leave, if you try to go back, you get stuck, trapped between the real world and the trail, never fully in either place. I've tried to investigate, Asked other SAR volunteers if they've heard similar stories. Most haven't, but a few have. Stories of hikers found in impossible locations. Hikers who insist they followed trails that don't exist. Hikers who lose time, who age years and days, or don't age at all. There's a theory, not scientific, not official, but it's whispered among experienced search and rescue people. They say there are trails in the mountains that aren't really there. Ghost trails, phantom paths, places where the boundary between worlds is thin. If you find one, if you start walking it, you might not come back, or if you do, you won't be the same. I've seen things I can't explain. Found hikers in locations they couldn't have reached. Found equipment in impossible places. Found people who swear they hiked for hours, but their watches say minutes or days. Last month I found something else. I was doing a solo patrol in the same area where we found Michael, and I saw it, a trail. Perfect, maintained. Stone steps leading up the ridge. I stood at the entrance, looked at my map. No trail marked. Checked my GPS. Nothing there. I took one step onto it. Just one. The air changed. Became thicker. Warmer. I heard sounds. Footsteps ahead of me. Voices whispering. Calling. Inviting me to follow. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. The pull was almost physical. But I remembered Michael. Remembered his empty eyes. Remembered him sitting on that rock, trapped between worlds. I stepped back, off the trail. The moment my foot touched normal ground, the trail disappeared, like it was never there. I reported it, logged the coordinates, warned other SAR teams, but when they checked, they found nothing. No trail, no signs anyone had been there. Just virgin forest. They think I imagined it, that I was tired, dehydrated, seeing things, but I know what I saw, and I know I'm not going back to that area. Not alone, not ever, because the trails in the Smokies aren't all on the maps. Some of them exist in places we can't see, places we shouldn't go, and once you start walking them, you might never stop. If you hike in the Appalachian Mountains, stick to marked trails. Ignore paths that look too perfect, too maintained. If you see a trail that isn't on your map, turn around, walk away, because those trails lead somewhere. Somewhere Michael went, somewhere he's still trying to come back from, and if you follow them, you might end up sitting on a rock, staring at nothing, while the world moves on without you. The nursing home in Boone, North Carolina, has a patient who won't die. She's been there for 43 years. The doctors can't explain it. She's 127 years old. Should have died decades ago. But every time she gets close, she recovers. And she keeps talking about the water. The water from the spring behind her old house. The water that keeps you young forever. The water that won't let you die. I'm a hospice nurse. I've worked with the dying for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of people take their last breath. I know the signs, know the timeline, know when someone has days left, hours, minutes, but I've never seen anything like Elizabeth Harmon. She was admitted to the nursing home in 1981. She was 84 years old then, widowed, no living family, no one to care for her. The diagnosis was terminal. Congestive heart failure, advanced. They gave her 6 months. That was 43 years ago. I started working at the home 10 years ago. Elizabeth was already a legend among the staff. The woman who wouldn't die. Medical miracle, they called her. Anomaly, exception. But no one really understood. No one asked the right questions. I did. I got curious. Started reviewing her medical records. And I found something strange. Every few years, she'd decline, rapidly, on death's door. Then she'd rally, recover completely, stronger than before. It happened like clockwork. Every 7 years, decline, recovery, repeat. The doctors couldn't explain it. Ran every test, every scan, took blood samples, tissue samples, sent them to research hospitals. Everyone was baffled. By all medical standards, she should have been dead for decades. But she wasn't. She was still here, still breathing, still talking. I asked her about it once, sat with her during my shift, asked how she was still alive. She smiled, a knowing smile. "The water," she said. "I drink the water, and I live." I asked what water. "The spring water, from behind my old house, up on Raven's Peak." I thought she was confused, demented, but she was sharp, sharper than most people half her age. She knew exactly what she was saying. She described the spring, hidden in a grove of mountain laurel, clear, cold water, bubbling up from deep underground. She'd drunk from it every day for decades, until she was forced to leave. Forced into the home. I asked what made the water special. She looked at me seriously. "It keeps you young, keeps you alive." The Cherokee knew about it. Before them, the old ones, they called it the spring of forever, said it was a gift from the earth, but also a curse. I pressed for details. She said, "Anyone who drinks from the spring stops aging, stops dying." Sounds wonderful, right? But it's not, because you don't stay healthy. You don't stay strong. You just don't die. Your body degrades. Your mind fades. But you keep living, forever, trapped in a failing shell. That's why she stopped drinking it, she said. Why she left the mountain. Why she came to the home. She wanted to die. Thought that by stopping the water, by leaving the spring, she could finally die naturally. But it's been 43 years, and she's still here, still waiting. I asked where her old house was. She gave me directions. Up Raven's Peak, 3 miles past the old mill, left fork at the dead oak. House is abandoned now. Been empty since she left, but the spring is still there, still flowing, still waiting. I shouldn't have gone. Should have dismissed it as the ramblings of an old woman. But I was curious, and maybe a little foolish. So on my day off, I drove up Raven's Peak, found the old mill, found the dead oak, took the left fork. The house was there, collapsed, overgrown, reclaimed by the forest. But behind it, I found the spring, just like she described, hidden in a grove of mountain laurel. Clear water bubbling up from between the rocks, cold, pure, beautiful. I knelt beside it, cupped my hands. The water was ice cold, colder than it should have been. I hesitated, remembered Elizabeth's warnings, but curiosity won. I took a sip. It tasted clean, pure, better than any water I'd ever had. I felt energized, refreshed, like I'd slept for 10 hours. I filled the bottle, took it home, drank from it over the next few days. And I noticed changes. My chronic back pain disappeared. A scar I'd had since childhood faded. I stopped getting tired, stopped needing as much sleep. I felt amazing, younger, stronger, better than I had in 20 years. But then I noticed other things. A cut on my hand wouldn't heal. It didn't get worse, didn't get infected, just stayed the same, open, raw, like my body had stopped healing. And I couldn't sleep, not because I wasn't tired, because my body wouldn't let me. I'd lie in bed for hours, exhausted, but sleep wouldn't come. I went back to Elizabeth, told her what I'd done. She nodded slowly, like she'd expected it. "How much did you drink?" she asked. "Just a little, a few sips over a week." She shook her head. "That's enough. It's in you now. You'll feel it working. Feel it changing you." I asked how to reverse it, how to stop it. She smiled sadly. "You can't. Once you drink, you're marked. You'll live longer than you should, but you'll pay the price. Your body will stop repairing itself, stop healing. You'll accumulate damage, injuries, scars, but you won't die. You'll just keep degrading until you're a conscious mind trapped in a broken body." I asked how long until it gets bad. She thought about it. Depends how much you drank. For me, I drank daily for 50 years. Took another 40 years before the effects really set in. For you, maybe 20 years, maybe less. But it will happen. I panicked, researched, looked for ways to reverse it. Detox, purify my blood. Nothing worked. The water had changed something fundamental. Cellular level, molecular. I was marked, changed, cursed. That was 5 years ago. I'm starting to notice it now. Wounds heal slowly. Sometimes not at all. I don't get sick, don't get old, but I'm accumulating damage. Little things, aches, pains, stiffness that never go away, never improve, just persist. I've tried to warn people, tried to block access to the spring, but it's on public land, national forest. I can't control it, and people still find it, still drink from it, lured by the promise of youth, of immortality, not understanding the cost. Elizabeth is still at the home, still alive, still waiting to die. She's been bedridden for the past 10 years, can barely move, can barely speak, but she's conscious, aware, trapped, and she'll be there for who knows how many more decades, maybe centuries. I visit her every week, sit with her, hold her hand. We don't talk much anymore, but we understand each other. We're the same now, marked by the water, cursed with life, waiting for a death that may never come. If you're in the mountains of North Carolina, near a place called Raven's Peak, and you find a spring hidden in mountain laurel, walk away. Don't drink. Don't even touch it, because the water remembers. And once you drink, it never lets you go. You'll live longer than you ever wanted, suffer more than you ever imagined, and death, the only release, will stay forever out of reach. The mountains hold many secrets. Some grant wishes, some answer prayers, but everything has a price, and the price of living forever is higher than anyone should have to pay. There's a fire tower on Clingman's Dome in the Great Smoke. It's been abandoned for 60 years, but every night, someone climbs to the top and lights a signal fire. Rangers have investigated dozens of times. The tower is always empty. The fire is always burning, and carved into the wall at the top is a message, written in blood, fresh blood. Every night, it says, "They're still coming. Keep watching. Don't let them cross." I'm a park ranger. Been working the Smokies for 12 years. I've seen strange things, bear encounters, lost hikers with impossible stories, lights in the sky, but nothing like the Clingman's Dome fire tower. The tower was built in 1950, decommissioned in 1963, when planes took over fire spotting duties. It's been empty ever since, locked, fenced, posted with no trespassing signs, but someone keeps getting in. Someone keeps climbing to the top. Someone keeps lighting fires. The first reports came in the winter of 2015. Hikers saw smoke from the tower, called it in. We investigated, found the tower locked, gate secure, but smoke was coming from the observation deck. We cut the lock, climbed the stairs, found a fire burning in an old oil drum, still hot. Recently lit. We searched the tower. No one there. No signs of how anyone got in. The lock hadn't been picked. The fence hadn't been cut. But someone had been there. Had to have been. Fires don't light themselves. We put it in the report. Assumed it was kids. Determined vandals. We changed the locks. Reinforced the fence. Installed motion sensors. And the next night, the fire burned again. Motion sensors didn't trigger. New lock was intact. Fence was secure. But smoke rose from the tower. We raced up there. Found the same thing. Fire in the oil drum. No one present. And this time, we found something else. A message. Carved into the wooden wall at the top. Fresh. Still bleeding sap. They're still coming. Keep watching. We called it in Got specialists involved. They dusted for prints. Found none. Looked for DNA. Found none. Set up cameras. Locked cameras. But every night, the fire burned. And every morning, the cameras showed nothing. Just darkness. Then, suddenly, light. Fire appearing from nowhere. Command decided to stake it out. Put rangers in position around the tower, watching 24/7. I took the midnight to 6 a.m. shift. Sat in my truck 100 yards from the base. Had night vision goggles, thermal imaging, radio. If anyone approached, I'd see them at midnight exactly. I heard the tower door open. Saw nothing on night vision. Nothing on thermal. But I heard it, clear as day. Footsteps climbing the metal stairs. Clang, clang, clang. Regular, measured. Going up. I radioed for backup. Approached the tower. Door was closed. Still locked. But the footsteps continued. I could hear them above me. Ascending. I unlocked the door. Climbed the stairs. Gun drawn. Flashlight sweeping. Each landing was empty. But the footsteps stayed ahead of me. Always one flight up. I reached the top. The observation deck was empty, but the oil drum was there. And fire was starting to appear in it. Not being lit, appearing, like watching film in reverse. Smoke materializing, flames growing, heat building, and the message, carving itself into the wall. Letters forming one at a time. Invisible hands, scratching wood. They're still coming. Keep watching. Don't let them cross. I radioed it in. Described what I was seeing. Backup arrived 20 minutes later. Found me standing on the deck, staring at the fire. They asked if I'd caught whoever was doing this. I told them there was no one. Told them I'd watched the fire appear. Watched the message write itself. They thought I was lying, covering for missing an intruder. But they saw my body cam footage. Saw the same thing I'd seen. Fire from nowhere. Message writing itself. They had no explanation. Neither did I. Command shut down the investigation, classified it, told us not to discuss it. But the fires continued. Every night. Same time, same message. And rangers started refusing to go there. Started avoiding that section of the park. I couldn't let it go. Did research. Found something in old records. The tower was built on the site of an older structure, a Cherokee watchtower, used to spot invading armies, burned in 1838 during the removal. The Trail of Tears. Dozens of Cherokee died defending it. Their bodies were never recovered. The records mentioned a prophecy. The watchers would return, would keep their posts, would continue warning of invasion until their people came home. No one took it seriously. It was just a story. But I started connecting it to the message. They're still coming. What if they wasn't intruders? What if it was something else? Something the Cherokee were watching for. Something that made them maintain the tower, even after death. I went back at night, alone, against orders. Climbed to the top. The fire was burning. The message was fresh. I sat there, waiting. And at 3 a.m., I saw them, coming from the east, moving through the forest. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, not walking, gliding, floating just above the ground, pale, transparent, but definitely there, moving in formation, moving with purpose. I watched them flow through the valley below, watched them move toward the park boundary, and I realized what I was seeing. The Cherokee weren't watching for human invaders. They were watching for these things, whatever they were, keeping them from crossing, keeping them contained. The fire flared. I felt a presence beside me, turned, saw him, a Cherokee man, old, wearing traditional clothes from the 1830s. He wasn't solid. I could see through him, but he was there, looking at me. "You see them," he said. His voice was like wind through trees. "You understand now." I nodded. He gestured to the fire. "We keep the fire. We watch. We prevent the crossing, but we grow weak. Need help. Need watchers who can see. I asked what they were. The things in the valley. He said they were the old ones. Spirits from before the Cherokee, before any human. They sleep in the deep places, but they wake sometimes. Try to cross to the world of the living. The Watchers stop them, keep them contained, keep them sleeping. I asked what would happen if they crossed. He looked at me with ancient eyes. They feed on the living, consume, replace, where people like clothes, spread, multiply. They crossed once, long ago, before we learned to watch. Took a whole village. When we found it, everyone was there, but they weren't themselves anymore. Just things wearing human faces. The Cherokee built watchtowers, kept fires burning, watched day and night, kept the old ones contained. When the soldiers came in 1838, the Watchers pleaded to stay, explained the importance. The soldiers didn't listen, forced them to leave, and the Watchers died defending the tower. But they didn't stop watching. They kept their posts, even in death. Now I understand. The fires aren't vandalism. They're warnings. The carvings aren't graffiti. They're logs, documentation, a record kept for nearly 200 years by ghosts who refuse to abandon their duty. I've joined them, not officially. Command doesn't know, but I go to the tower now. Every few nights, climb to the top, tend the fire, watch the valley, and I see them. The old ones, always moving, always testing the boundaries, looking for gaps, looking for a way across. The Cherokee Watchers are fading, getting weaker, harder to see. The fire burns dimmer each year, and the old ones are getting bolder, moving closer, testing more frequently. One night, they'll find a gap, they'll cross, and when they do, we'll have no warning, no defense. Just things that look like people, but aren't, walking among us, feeding. I'm telling this story because someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand what the fires mean, why the tower must be watched, why the message appears every night. The Park Service doesn't believe, doesn't care. They want to tear down the tower, remove the eyesore. If they do, the old ones will cross, and no one will know until it's too late, until your neighbor isn't your neighbor anymore, until your family isn't your family, until the things wearing human faces outnumber the real humans, and by then, there will be no stopping them. The fires still burn on Klingman's dome, the message still appears, and the Cherokee dead still watch, but they're fading, and we're running out of time. If you're near the Smokies, and you see smoke from the old tower, don't report it, don't investigate it. Just know that someone is watching, someone is protecting you, and pray they never stop. I'm a paranormal researcher. Last year, I investigated a phenomenon in the Appalachian Mountains called the door sessions. Locals claim there's a spot where doors open to other places, other times, other worlds. They say people walk through and never come back, or they come back different, changed. Wrong. I found the spot. I went through a door, and what I saw on the other side made me understand why the mountains have so many missing persons cases. Because they're not missing. They're just somewhere else. The door sessions aren't well known outside local communities. They're not online, not documented, just whispered stories passed between mountain people who know better than to dismiss the impossible. I heard about them from an old man in a bar in He said his brother went through, came back 3 years later, hadn't aged a day, couldn't explain where he'd been, wouldn't talk about it, just stared out windows, waiting for something. I pressed for details. The old man drew me a map on a napkin, showed me a location deep in the Cherokee National Forest, said that's where the doors appear. Not always, not predictably, but when conditions are right, when the veil is thin, you can find them, walk through, see what's on the other side. I went alone. Should have brought backup, but I didn't want to risk anyone else. The location was remote, took me 6 hours of hiking to reach it. A small valley, unremarkable, just trees and rocks and a creek. But the air felt different, charged, like before a lightning strike. I set up camp, waited for nightfall. The old man said doors only appear after dark, during certain moon phases, when the temperature drops just right. I had a thermometer, a compass, a camera. I was prepared to document everything at 11 p.m. The temperature dropped, suddenly, from 60 degrees to 40 in 10 minutes. My breath came out in clouds. The compass started spinning, just spinning endlessly, never settling on a direction, and I heard something, a sound like wind through a tunnel. But there was no wind. Then I saw it, a door, just appearing in the air, not attached to anything, freestanding, old wooden door, frame and all, standing vertical in the middle of the valley, like someone had cut it out of a house and placed it there. But it hadn't been there a moment ago. It had just appeared. I approached slowly. The door was solid, real. I could touch it, feel the wood, see the grain. It had a brass handle, tarnished, old. I pulled out my camera, started recording. Then I did something stupid. I opened the door. On the other side wasn't the valley. It was somewhere else. I saw a street, city buildings, people walking, but the clothes were wrong. Old-fashioned, 1950s style. The cars were vintage. The signs were in old fonts. I was looking at a city that existed 70 years ago. I stepped through, just one step, to see if it was real. The moment my foot touched the other side, the air changed, smelled different, like coal, smoke, and car exhaust. I heard traffic, horns, people talking in accents I didn't recognize. This wasn't a projection, wasn't a hologram. It was real. Another place, another time. I turned back. The door was still there, still open, still showing the valley on the other side, my side. I could go back, should go back, but I was curious. I took a few more steps. The door stayed visible, like a portal. People walked past me, didn't react to me appearing from nowhere, didn't notice the door, just went about their business, like I'd always been there. I followed them, tried to figure out where, or when, I was. The newspapers on the stands said 1954. The city was Pittsburgh. I was 70 years in the past. Somehow, a door in a Tennessee valley had opened to Pennsylvania in 1954. Impossible, but happening. I walked around for maybe 30 minutes, observing, recording. Everything seemed normal, real. People lived and worked and went about their lives, but something felt wrong, uncanny, like I was watching a perfect simulation. Too perfect. Then I noticed them, people standing still, just standing on corners, in alleys, not moving, not talking, just standing and staring at me. They'd been there the whole time, but I'd missed them. Now I saw dozens, all frozen, all watching. I walked faster, back toward where I'd entered. The door was still there, still open, but the watchers followed, started moving, walking with jerky, unnatural movements, like puppets. They spread out, surrounding me, cutting off paths. I ran. They ran too fast, too fast. I reached the door, dove through, landed hard on the valley floor, rolled, got up, turned back. The watchers were at the doorway, reaching through, but not crossing, like they couldn't cross, or wouldn't. The door slammed shut on its own, disappeared, blinked out of existence. I was back in the valley, alone, shaking, but my camera was still recording. I checked the footage. What I saw made no sense. From my camera's perspective, I'd never left the valley. It showed me standing in front of the door, standing there for 30 minutes, not moving, like I was frozen, then suddenly jerking back to life, diving to the ground. But I remembered everything. The city, The people, the watchers, it was real. I know it was real. But the camera disagreed. I went back the next night, and the night after, trying to find another door. They appeared randomly. Different locations, different times. I went through several, saw different places, different eras, some past, some future, some that didn't match any time I recognized, and in every one, I saw the watchers, standing, staring, not interfering unless I stayed too long. Then they'd move, chase, try to keep me, like they wanted me to stay, to become one of them. I documented everything, took hundreds of hours of footage, made maps, notes. Then I tried to leave the mountains, tried to take my evidence out, but every road looped back, every trail circled around. I couldn't leave. The mountains wouldn't let me go. I realized the truth. The doors aren't gateways. They're traps. Once you go through, you're marked, connected, part of the system. The mountains keep you, use you, and eventually, you become one of the watchers, standing in doorways, staring, waiting for the next person foolish enough to step through. I see them now, even when doors aren't open. The watchers, standing in forests, beside trails, at overlooks. They're people who went through, people who couldn't leave, people who got trapped between places, between times, between worlds. I'm writing this from the valley. I've been here 3 months, or 3 years. Time moves strangely. I've stopped trying to leave, stopped fighting. The doors still appear. I still go through, still explore, still document, but I know I'll never leave. The mountains claimed me the moment I stepped through that first door. If you're hiking in the Appalachian Mountains and you see a door that shouldn't be there, don't open it. Don't look through it. Don't even approach it, because once you do, once you cross that threshold, you're theirs. The mountains will keep you, use you, turn you into another watcher, another warning that no one heeds. The missing persons in Appalachia aren't dead. They're not lost. They're just somewhere else, stuck between doors, between worlds, between moments in time. And they're watching, always watching, waiting for someone to join them, waiting to not be alone. And if you step through, you'll wait too, forever. The mountains have secrets. The deepest secret is this: they collect people. They gather them through doors that shouldn't exist. And once you're collected, you never leave. You just watch, and wait, and hope someone rescues you. But no one ever does, because no one believes, until they see a door, until they step through, until they become watchers too. I'm one of them now, and if you see me standing in a doorway, staring, don't approach. Don't ask if I need help. Just walk away, because I'll tell you it's safe, that you should look, that you should step through, and I'll be lying. Not because I want to, but because that's what watchers do. We lie, we lure, we collect, just like the mountains taught us. The doors are still opening, and the mountains are still collecting, and we're still watching, always watching.